Have you ever realized that when you begin to genuinely transform, the people around you start feeling uneasy? They won't admit it outright, of course. Instead, they'll mask it with humor, with advice that sounds like concern, or just fall into an awkward silence whenever you speak about something meaningful. But deep down, the truth is simple. Your mental growth disrupts their sense of stability. And no one enjoys being forced to face their own stagnation. Maybe you're experiencing this right now. You've started thinking in new ways, behaving differently, perhaps even questioning ideas you once accepted without hesitation. Suddenly, you feel isolated, judged, misunderstood. What no one told you, but what nature always knew, is that this is the cost of forging a resilient mind. Not just any kind of strength, but the kind that's so powerful, so undeniable, that it unsettles others. It intimidates them. It silently exposes the fragility of those still operating on autopilot. But why does this happen? Because a truly awakened mind threatens the comfort of the crowd. Nature was never vague about this. When you choose independent thought, define your own values, and abandon the illusion of prepackaged truths, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the system, dangerous to others, and most of all, dangerous to the version of yourself you left behind. This video is not for the content or the complacent. It's for you, the one exhausted by your own doubts, standing at the edge of a personal collapse and ready to build something untouchable. A mind no one can control. A mind that terrifies because it refuses to bow. So, if you're prepared for this journey, a path that's solitary, difficult, but truly life-altering, stay. Because what nature will show you may shake you, but it will also free you. And after this, your thoughts will never be the same again. Nietzsche wasn't merely a philosopher. He was a surgeon of the soul. Someone brave enough to gaze into the void of human existence and not just survive it, but plunge headfirst into it. And it was in that void, in the storm within, that he found real power. Because for him, transformation never came from comfort or calm. It was born in suffering, in collapse, in disorder. He wrote, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." This wasn't poetic fluff, it was psychological truth. If your goal is to build an uncheckable mind, you have to let go of the fantasy that it will come from comfort, surface-level inspiration, or wishful thinking. Real power arises when you stop running from pain, when you stop begging for life to be easier and instead wish to be stronger. Think about your biggest moments of growth. Did they happen when life was smooth or when you were broken, directionless, forced to rebuild from the ground up? Nietzsche didn't glorify suffering. He saw it as essential. He treated it as a tool. And when you shift your relationship with pain, with failure, with solitude, you begin to forge something rare, an unbreakable spirit. And that's exactly when the world starts to notice. Because while others avoid chaos, you'll learn to move through it. While most crave normality, you'll craft greatness. But this evolution demands a violent rupture from everything you've been taught about what strength really means. Being strong doesn't mean pretending to be happy all the time. It's not about faking emotional control. Real strength means going through things that seem impossible and coming out the other side even more powerful. But nature understood that chaos alone isn't enough. It can destroy you, unless you have something steady inside you, a solid center. That's why in the next part, we'll talk about one of the most powerful moments in Nietzsche's philosophy, the moment he kills God and places all the weight of life on your shoulders. Because once you can no longer look up for answers, you must look within. That's where your universe has to begin. If this message is resonating with you, hit the subscribe button and support the channel. Thank you. When Nietzsche said, "God is dead," he wasn't celebrating. He was warning us, and many people still don't get it. He wasn't attacking some divine being. He was destroying an illusion, the comforting belief that someone above is watching over everything, that there's a plan, a purpose already laid out for us. When God dies, the excuses die too. And that's terrifying, because before that, it was easy to blame something else for your problems. It felt safe to believe that pain had meaning, that it was part of some higher design. But Nietzsche ripped that safety net away. He stared you in the eyes and said, "You're on your own. There's no ready-made purpose anymore. Now, you must create it." This is where the journey of building a powerful mind truly begins. Most people collapse when they see the truth that they're alone, surrounded by chaos, with no guide, no promises, and no one to blame. But those who face this and stay standing begin to shape a consciousness that can't be broken. With the death of God, Nietzsche throws you into the deep end of freedom. You no longer follow rules, you create them. You don't obey, you rise above. It's the birth of radical independence. And with it comes the weight. Now, everything depends on you. There's no more forgiveness from above. No rescue is coming. You either build yourself or fall. But here's the truth. This terrifying freedom is also your greatest power. Because the moment you realize that no one is coming to save you, something inside you wakes up. A fire. It pushes you to get up, even when you're wounded. It forces you to think for yourself, to feel for yourself, to act not because someone told you to, but because you chose it. And it's in this break from the old ways, from borrowed beliefs, that nature clears the path for something far greater, a new kind of human, someone who doesn't follow the crowd, someone who doesn't need validation or permission. A person who creates their own values, breaks their own limits, and lives as a true creator. Someone who makes others uncomfortable because their very existence shows people what they're hiding from. This person has a name. Nietzsche called him the Bermensch, the Overman. And now, we're going to talk about what that means. Because if you want to build a mind so powerful that nothing can break it, you need to understand what it takes to become that kind of being, someone who rises above rules, guided only by their own will to power. Let's dive in. Nietzsche didn't believe in slow, easy progress. He believed in breaking things apart, in deep transformation, in rebuilding through destruction. That's why he imagined the Bermensch, the Overman. Not a superhero, not someone with magic powers, but someone who has conquered everything that holds the average person back: guilt, obedience, the morality of the herd, the need to fit in. The Bermensch doesn't strive for approval. He doesn't seek permission to exist. Instead, he sets his own rules from within and lives by them, even if it means standing against everyone else. That's exactly why his mind is unshakable. It's not built on others' opinions or the need to be validated. He's self-reliant. His strength comes from within, driven by a deep urge to shape life according to his own vision. This is the key. The Bermensch doesn't try to fit into the world. He gives the world meaning. He doesn't look for comfort. He reaches for greatness. He doesn't ask, "Am I allowed?" He asks, "Is this worthy of who I am?" This shift changes everything. When you start to see yourself as a creator, not a follower, your entire mindset and behavior evolve. But here's the challenge: becoming this person demands sacrifice. You'll have to let go of the parts of yourself that still crave acceptance. You'll face the pain of being different. You'll carry the heavy burden of crafting your identity from nothing, with no guarantees, no praise, and no applause. Most people can't handle that. They quit before they even begin. They retreat into the comfort of inherited beliefs, easy answers, and rules someone else made. The path to becoming the Bermensch is lonely, and Nietzsche understood this well. He lived as an outsider, misunderstood, seen as mad, isolated from the very society he wanted to free. Yet, in that isolation, he discovered what freedom really is. That's what you need to realize. The stronger your mind becomes, the more you drift from the crowd. The higher you rise, the more you unsettle others. Becoming the Bermensch is a violent and transformative journey. It forces you to destroy everything that isn't truly yours, everything society forced on you, everything a sick culture praised, everything that silenced your authenticity. And only after this destruction can you start to build. But the building doesn't happen in the noise of the crowd, it happens in silence, in withdrawal, in the solitude that separates the strong from the fragile. And that's exactly why, in the next part, we'll explore one of the most overlooked and powerful stages of this path, the solitude of the strong. Because the truth is, to become uncheckable, you must learn to walk alone. And very few are ready for that. Are you? There's one truth about mental strength that almost no one tells you. The stronger you get, the lonelier it feels. Not because you want to be alone, but because the world won't know what to do with you. Nietzsche made that point clear. The free thinker, the one who rejects group morality, who challenges easy answers and thinks independently, will always drift away from the crowd. And that distance, it hurts. But that pain is part of the process. Real growth needs space. You can't expand while being chained to others' expectations. Most people live in a silent herd where every thought is monitored and every action is filtered through others' opinions. You're used to moving with the group, thinking like the group, feeling safe because you're not alone. But Nietzsche throws you out of that safety, into the wilderness. And in that wilderness, there are no cheers, no praise, no clear direction. There's only you, your doubts, your wounds, your fears, and your urge to quit. And that's exactly where. This is where the real test begins. What do most people do? They run back. They hide behind their usual masks. They pretend they don't feel, don't think, don't notice. But you, if you truly want to become someone unbreakable, must stay. You must face the silence that shows you exactly who you are. Nietzsche once said, the individual must always struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try, you will often feel lonely and sometimes afraid. But no price is too high to pay for owning yourself. And that's the core of it, owning yourself. It's the rarest and most powerful thing a person can do. Because when you truly belong to yourself, no one else can control you. No one else decides your value. No one else can destroy you. But owning yourself comes with a cost, loneliness. You will lose people. You will be misunderstood. Some will say you're arrogant, strange, or distant. They will try to pull you back into the mold. They might call you crazy, cold, or heartless. But that's the price of not being tamed. That's the price of not needing approval. That's the price of not living just to reflect what others want from you. Here's the hard truth. If you can't handle being alone, you're not ready to be free. All true freedom requires giving things up, emotional support, easy illusions, and friendships that only exist because you fit in. That's why Nietzsche saw solitude as a privilege, a battlefield where the real self can finally rise. But this strong mind, this elevated spirit, doesn't just walk alone. It starts to see what others can't. And with that clarity comes something else, a clash with mediocrity. Because the moment you start growing, the average around you notices and it pushes back. That's what we'll talk about next, the threat of collective mediocrity. The world doesn't chase those who blend in. It targets those who dare to rise above. Nietzsche wasn't afraid of dictators or harsh rulers. What he warned us about aloud and clear was something more subtle, the quiet, poisonous power of collective mediocrity. That hidden system that keeps everyone the same, that punishes people who think differently, that praises obedience and dresses up fear as virtue. True tyranny, Nietzsche believed, doesn't come from the top, It comes from those around you, from the crowd that needs you to stay small so they don't have to grow. And that's what happens when you begin to stand out. When your mind becomes sharper, your spirit stronger, your presence harder to ignore. You make people uncomfortable, not because you're wrong, but because you're rare. You break the pattern, and society hates that. Collective mediocrity can't stand individual brilliance because brilliance reveals what average life tries to hide. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a way of thinking built by people who couldn't reach greatness. So instead, they flipped the meaning of things. They said strength is arrogance, ambition is selfishness, independence is coldness. They made a system that protects the weak and shames the strong. But don't be fooled. This isn't kindness, it's bitterness. The weak don't want help, they want the strong to fall. So when you start to free yourself, they attack. Sometimes openly, sometimes quietly, with glances, with silence, with sarcasm, but the message is always the same: go back. You're making us feel small. And you are, without even trying, just by being you. Nietzsche saw it clearly. Most people live trapped in quiet conformity, shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience, and conformity are the norms for most people. And anyone who dares to challenge these norms is seen as a threat. However, don't be misled. Mediocrity doesn't attack directly, it attacks through numbers, through the power of consensus, and by constantly repeating the same ideas. It will make you question yourself and feel wrong for not fitting in. It will use everything from shame to exclusion to get you to conform. This is the moment when many people give up, as they can't bear being labeled as the odd one, the difficult one, or the arrogant one. But nature would give you another name, one that is necessary. While the world keeps spinning with recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and comforting lies, it is the strong individual who brings the discomfort that creates the space for something new to grow. Your difference is the spark for transformation, but it's also the target of resistance. Being strong, thinking freely, and living independently are acts of defiance against mediocrity, and like any act of rebellion, they require preparation and weapons. But not physical weapons, mental weapons. And that's what we'll dive into next in the final part. There is a steep price to developing a mind so strong that it intimidates, but there's also a reward no one can take away. You've made it this far, and that already sets you apart from most people. The majority would have stopped watching at the first challenge, would have run away at the first discomfort, would have turned it off when they realized this isn't content meant to flatter the ego. This is a call to action, a call for those ready to let go of comfortable illusions and face the raw reality with open eyes. Building a mind strong enough to make others fear it is not just a choice, it's a sacrifice. You will lose friendships based on shallow connections. You will miss opportunities that require submission. You will lose the ability to be content with mediocrity. But in exchange, you gain something priceless: integrity, clarity, and presence. You will begin to see that most people are asleep and that your awareness disturbs them. Your firmness will make others nervous. Your absence will speak louder than the presence of many. This strength doesn't come from outside sources. It's not something you learn from self-help books, nor is it earned through catchy phrases or empty affirmations. It is forged deep within the soul, in the quiet of tough nights, in choices no one else sees. It's the result of an internal war between who you were and who you're becoming. And this war never ends because the truly strong aren't those who have won. They are those who continue to fight even when they could stop. Nature didn't want followers, it wanted to spark internal revolutions. It wanted you to stop crawling for approval, stop begging for meaning, and stop looking for ready-made answers that can only be found through struggle, sweat, and self-awareness. It wanted you to become dangerous, not in a violent way, but in a rare way, so rare that your very existence forces others to confront what they've been avoiding. Now, I invite you to do something that will solidify this process. Write in the comments a truth you've been hiding, an opinion you're afraid to share, a thought that isolates you but represents who you truly are. This is part of the journey, claiming your voice, showing your presence, and more importantly, declaring that you will no longer bend. If this video resonated with you, if something inside you has been awakened, don't stop here. The next video is just as crucial, if not more so. It continues this journey. If you've made it this far, you're not here just out of curiosity. Something inside you is already changing. So keep going. You're not alone. You're just ahead of the pack. And that, my friend, is both frightening and liberating.